Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. I'm Biola Alabi.
I'm Tundu Abiola.
The People's Democratic Party candidate for last year's governorship election in Osun State, Senator Adeleke, has been declared as being eligible to contest the election by the appeal court. By doing so, the appellate court overruled the federal high court, which had earlier ruled that he forged his certificate, which was submitted to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. Joining us this morning to take a look at the latest update on this case is Wale Oluwade, a public affairs analyst, and also he is a strategy advisor to the Senator Adeleke. Welcome and good morning. It's good to have you back on the show.
Good morning, Biola. Good morning, Tundu.
Good morning,
it's nice
Mr.
to be
Oluwade.
back on the morning show.
I know you're an advisor to the senator, and I know yesterday must have been very good news in your camp. Just for people that maybe for some reason this is their first time hearing about this case, can you just create the context of what's been happening in Osun State and why this is important to your candidate?
Thank you, Biola. But for the mischief, because this case, the matter we're discussing this morning, ought to have never, been a case in the first place. But for the mischief of those who instituted the case, their claim essentially is that Senator Adeleke did not qualify, is not eligible to contest the primaries of the PDP, not to have been fielded by the PDP as its candidate in last year's September 22nd gubernatorial elections. Now, the documents attached to a certain form CF001, which the senator submitted, to INEC, to participate in the elections. They alleged that those documents were forged. So essentially, alleging that the senator is a forger. And forgery is a criminal offense. So I need to give this background, so you understand the motive, in the minds of the desperate individuals who instituted this action. Also, there are at least five high courts in Osun State, in Osogbo, maybe and a few other towns in Osun State, where this case ought to have been instituted. But they left Osogbo, they left Osun State, and came all the way to Abuja. In Abuja metropolis, there are several high courts where this case ought to have been instituted also. But they left the metropolis and went, forum shopping, in the outskirts, in Buhari. And if you know where Buhari is, it's so far from town. Because obviously they were playing out a script. So they were searching for a pliable, judge to do their bidding. Because as I would soon explain, because in the substance of the case is that, okay, he forged documents. So their intention is to confer on the senator the tag, the toga of a convict, thereby, basically nullifying him, as making him unsuitable or unfit, to assume the exalted office of governor. Because the Constitution of Nigeria provides that, certain groups of persons cannot vie for public offices if you're of unsound mind, for instance, or if you're a convict, if you have been convicted of a crime. So that is the objective of these guys, because all they've done is to tarnish Senator Adeleke's reputation, make him look like a criminal, in the eyes of the public generally. So back to the issue at hand. Now, when we got to the court at Buhari, our defense counsel, argued, that the court does not have jurisdiction, because I told you this matter ought to have been heard. It's a pre-election matter, and it should have been heard in the states where the alleged offense, was committed or perpetrated. So they brought it. So number one, the court does not have jurisdiction. But number two is that as a pre-election matter, this case ought to have been heard, instituted, 14 days after the alleged crime. But this case was brought to Abuja, a Buhari court, 44 days after. So that's, and by virtue of this, just one point, everything else that was done, is a nullity, because that means it is statute bad. the case is statute barred. You cannot institute that case any longer because you are bringing it after the time stipulated by the Electoral Act. And thirdly, is the issue of, the guys who brought this case, subpoenaed WAEC, which is the examination body for West African students who want to write secondary school examination. So they subpoenaed WAEC to say, can you verify? Because since this guy is claiming that, the senator is claiming you issued this certificate, come and authenticate, or otherwise that this certificate is from you. They also subpoenaed, the principal of Senator Adeleke's former high school, at the Muslim boys' school, I think. And now, interestingly, this WAEC and the principal of the school appeared in court and corroborated Senator Adeleke's claims that, yes, these documents were issued by us, essentially saying Senator Adeleke did not forge these documents. He's not a criminal, he's not a forger, and it will shock you that the judge in this Buhari court, regardless of the weight of evidence, as deposed to, by the officers of WAEC and by the principal of the high school where Senator Adeleke finished from, regardless of the evidence that these persons gave, the judge still went ahead to find Senator Adeleke guilty, of forgery and convicted him, which tallies with my earlier submission that, to our own mind, in the camp of Senator Adeleke, this was a premeditated and calculated, legal assault, simply to make him become a criminal. Thereby, eventually, if he does win at the substantive election petition at the Supreme Court, if he does win, he will be unable, to assume the office of governor. And that leads us to, now, the appeal court, found on all our grounds of appeal, the appeal court agreed with us. Number one, the trial court, the trial judge erred in law. It's so simple on the face of it. There is no way that this judge should have found, Senator Adeleke guilty. So the appeal court agreed with the submissions of our lawyers, that number one, the court did not have jurisdiction. Number two, the case was filed, out of time, so it was statute barred. Everything else that was done is a nullity. Number three, that even on the face of the evidence, the appeal court, the justice that delivered the judgment said it was a miscarriage, of justice, because it infringed on the fundamental rights of the defendants who, you subpoenaed his WAEC and his high school, and they gave evidence that supported his defense, and yet you jettisoned all of that to find him guilty, and to show the anger of the appeal court justices, they awarded the cost of $3 million against the guys who instituted this case.
Mr.
Now,
Oluwade,
back to the issue of motive.
Yeah, Mr. Oluwade, I need to come in here. Aside from the technicalities which you've listed about jurisdiction and procedure, there are also the merits or demerits of the case, according to the court. Section 177D of the Constitution was cited, which requires a governor to have school certificate level education or its equivalent. However, eyebrows were raised at the rather liberal interpretation given by Justice Agim, saying that the Constitution requires that you sit the exams, not that you pass them. What is your view on this? Do you feel that this is lowering the bar?
Well, interestingly, my views on qualifications of persons for public office in Nigeria, But the law is what the law is. Until the law is amended, the law is what it is. Let me even shock you, Tudu. You do not even have to sit for WAEC to qualify to be a governor of a state in Nigeria. Section 318 of the Constitution also says that, if you can speak English to the satisfaction of INEC officials, you can vie for governorship in Nigeria. If you've worked in an organization, and risen to a certain level, you can vie for governorship, and so on and so forth. So, but the express provision of Section 177 says you must have sat, for WAEC. Whether you pass or not is irrelevant, that you sat. And Senator Adeleke met that minimum threshold of the Constitution. So why go ahead, to try to criminalize him by saying he forged, the certificate or the school testimonial, and that brings me back to the issue of what exactly, because in our own in our camp, in the camp of Senator Adeleke, what we see is a desperate attempt, to make sure Senator Adeleke or the PDP does not recover their stolen mandate. And why? There has been a lot that has gone down in the mismanagement, the misrule, the misgovernance in Osun State under former Governor Rauf Aregbesola. As we speak, the roads are in a deplorable state. I mean, I'm glad I'm speaking to you, Tudu and Biola. There is no reason why any Yoruba state, I mean, I'm saying all the 6 or so states from the southwest of Nigeria, if we're conducting WAEC or any examination, JAMB or whatever, the 6 Yoruba states, should have no business being in any number between after 15. But guess what? Osun State was 28th in last year's 2018 WAEC results. What is Osun State doing being number 28 in education in Nigeria? I mean, it's mind-blowing. And then the man who is there now, Alhaji Oyetola, I mean, about a couple of months ago, he started a program to rehabilitate or build, 300+ primary health care centers all over the world in Osun State, or local governments in Osun State. The question is, so what exactly did Governor Aregbesola, do in 8 years of stewardship? Of course, I can't go on to tell you about the way the former governor maltreated, abused, both psychologically, financially, the workers of Osun State. So there is a lot that has gone down there. Let me also shock you, Tudu and Biola. The debt profile of Osun State is probably second only to that of Lagos. Now, if you put together what Lagos State makes in IGR and their allocation from the federation account, you can understand, why Lagos will be that indebted. But why should Osun State be perhaps the second highest indebted state in Nigeria? And you go to Osun State, you cannot find anything near 20 or 30% commensurate to the level of indebtedness. So where's the money? So in our own mind, and to me personally, because I'm one of the main persons, putting up a transformation master plan for Osun State, we have tried to understand how, a group of persons can be so, I mean, the misgovernance that went down in Osun State is utterly mind-blowing. I can't wrap my brains, around it. So in our own camp, we're so clear, we know exactly what is playing out. They are only trying to cover their tracks. But, the Supreme Court is going to give its verdict, before the end of July. So we wait and see, but we're clear, we know what is going on, So I need to reiterate to the listening public, to Nigerians, home and abroad. Senator Nuruddin Adeleke is not a criminal. He's not a certificate forger. I mean, who are we talking about here? The Adeleke dynasty of Ede, Osun State. I mean, you don't have them come better than that. This is a man with pedigree. I mean, the late elder brother, he was the first civilian governor of Osun State in 1992. He was a senator, and it was a seat at the Senate that Senator Ademola took over when the elder brother died. The father, was a senator also in the Second Republic. He was one who moved the motion for the creation of Osun State. So we're talking about a family, a dynasty that has pedigree, people of upstanding, pedigree in the society. And so you come from nowhere trying to confer on this man, innocent man, the toga of a criminal, of a crook, just because you want to cover your tracks. We'll see how it plays out, but we know exactly what is going on.
Thank you. I wanted to just get a sense from you. I mean, the elections have took place almost a year ago. How are you keeping your troops motivated? How are you keeping your troops optimistic? And what is the state of mind of the senator of the final outcome of this case?
Thank you, Biola. I mean, the judgment of the appeal court, this last week, that was so clear, so unambiguous, to say outright that even a third or second year undergraduate student of law should know on prima facie evidence that there is no case against this man. It was just, premeditated, intention, to tarnish his hard-earned reputation. So this kind of good news, of course, helps, to boost the morale of our people, of our teaming, millions of our supporters, both in Osun State and, I mean, in diaspora. The senator, if you recall, in the last couple of months, has been hounded. I mean, and I use the word hounded being hauled from one place to the other, from one magistrate court. If they can find a high court, they drag him there, on the same issue, and of course that is demoralizing. Of course, if you had that to the case at the appeal court, which I also came here, to say, was a travesty of justice, because on whatever grounds you cannot wrap your brains around what the appeal court, the decision of the appeal court in the substantive matter. So this kind of good news, of course, helps, to ginger, to boost the morale, to psych up, our troops and keep them going, of course. And I think beyond that, the biggest motivator in our own camp is that we know what we want to do. We are coming to Osun State, Osogbo, to take over and demonstrate, what governance is all about. You see, this whole funny idea of running, because what Adeleke did in 8 years was to run that state. Of course, he ran it at ground, but then he ran it, jettisoned the civil service, totally abandoned the civil service. Of course, he was owing them months and months of salaries. He did not believe in the civil service, and so he was running it with pseudo organizations. He set up all these funny, organizations by which he ran the state and plunged the state into massive debt. Talking about the built roads, there's an airport project. Tundu and Biola, if you go to that place, from the records available to us, they've sunk almost 20 billion naira on that project, and we could not find anything that is even close to R1 billion expended on that project. Osogbo is not the same terrain that you find in Yenagoa or River State or in Calabar or wherever. So that you say, okay, you are trying to, you brought in people to do sand filling. No, the earth, the ground of Osogbo is good enough if you want to build an airport. So the people of Osun State know what we're coming to do. So they are hopeful, and we keep telling them to keep praying, to keep trusting in the justness of the Supreme Court panel, that at the end of the day, justice will be served.
I have a follow-up for you. You've been saying take over. If that doesn't happen, how will you, Senator, and your team continue to serve the people of Osun State? Because you can serve without being the governor.
Yes, we can serve without being in government, and we've been doing that. Part of what I'm doing now is serving the state, is enlightening the people, telling them this is not the way to go. Transformational governance, people-centered governance is not about jettisoning the people. If you need to serve the people, the people ought to be at the heart, of your programs and your plans. In the unlikely event, and I stress the word unlikely event, that the Supreme Court does not go in our favor. Of course, we step back, we re-strategize, we replan. We are not spoilers. We are not going to, play the role of spoilers. That's that it's what it is. It's the law. But we are optimistic, absolutely optimistic that on the weight, if you read the decision of the trial court, of the tribunal, on the substantive, on our petition, to the tribunal, it was so well thought out. It was a well-reasoned on the points of law, one step after the other. The justices, the two judges, that found in our favor, it was a clearly reasoned on the legal arguments, on the logic of the law. You could not fault it. And that's why we believe strongly that what the appeal court did in the substantive matter was a travesty. It was a miscarriage of justice. And we believe in the Supreme Court of Nigeria that we'll get justice, at the Supreme Court. We're confident of that.
Do you have any indications that the plaintiff in this concurrent matter is heading to the Supreme Court, or will they accept the judgment of the Court of Appeal and pay the 3 million naira they've been ordered to pay?
Tundu, I would advise them to go to the Supreme Court, and so that, the cost that will be awarded against them probably will jump to maybe 10 or 20 million naira. Let them go to the Supreme Court. I just told you that even a second-year student of law in any Nigerian university, you don't even have to be at the law school, just an undergraduate. It's a non-starter. This case was needless. It was a diversion. It was a premeditated attempt, to ridicule, an honorable man. So they should go to the Supreme Court. We're waiting for them. They should go there. We're not going to tell them not to go to. They should go to the Supreme Court.
One of the things, sorry, have allergies here this morning. One of the things that we've been talking to you about is what is it that the incumbent didn't do? What do you think that Senator Adeleke will bring to Osun State that will be different? What type of programs can he actually implement in a state that you have said is so indebted? You have some of the lowest test scores in the country. What do you hope that this, I mean, if this goes your way, what will you do differently and how will you start that process? Because Osun State, like you said, is in a quagmire.
I've been waiting for the question, Biola. Yeah, thank you. I've been waiting for the question. Brilliant question. Now, the theme, of our blueprint for transforming Osun State is called See Here. C, that is an acronym. C standing for civil service reforms, E for education, revolution, E for economic revolution, H for healthcare reforms, I for infrastructural development, A for agricultural revolution. Now, we put civil service reforms deliberately as the focal point, of our transformation agenda. Because no matter how brilliant you are as a governor or as a president, no matter how brilliant you are, as any elected person, your manifesto, your campaign manifesto, you are going to have to use the driver, the critical driver, to achieve your manifesto is the civil service. Either the presidency or at the state government level or the local government. So we believe in the civil service. So the way the civil service in Osun State has been so battered, their psyche. Adegbeshola didn't just owe them, he battered their psyche. He reduced their psyche, he made them think less of themselves. And we are not that kind of people. I mean, you and I have interfaced several times. You know my passion about governance. I teach corporate governance. I understand how processes ought to work. So we're going to focus on the civil service, clear their outstanding, whatever they're being owed, benefits, pensions, salaries, and what have you. And then make training and retraining of the civil service a cardinal focus of our governance style. Secondly, you see, I mean, we've talked about, I've been here and we've talked about, how the local government is the critical engine of economic development, of creating employment, of social, of making sure that people do not migrate from the rural, to the urban centers. So the point about education, all the primary schools that are in such a dilapidated, horrendous, state, we're going to rebuild those schools. I am a product of a public school in Oyo State in Ibadan. I'm proud. Whatever English I'm speaking, whatever I've attained in life was because I had qualitative, sound education, that was provided by a local council. So we're going to do our education programs, rebuild those schools, recruit teachers. I mean, there was a report that came out that primary schools, local governments, states have not employed teachers for how many years now? All over Nigeria. That's not how to build a nation. So we'll do the same thing with our economic plans, empowering people, creating jobs for them, setting up SMEs in strategic areas of the economy, and then healthcare reforms. Primary health care in all the wards, in all the local governments, building health, making sure that in every ward in Osun State, in every ward, and I'm not saying local governments, every ward, that there is a qualified medical personnel, a doctor, a nurse, at the very least, in every ward, to provide health care service. So that, because why does Nigeria rank very high on the maternal mortality index? And the infant, mortality index? Because when women want to give birth, there's no access to healthcare. Before you move them from, the rural areas, the villages, the wards, to get them to maybe Osogbo, the capital where you have 1 or 2 hospitals, they are dead or they are already in a crisis state. So by the time you bring them there, what the doctors are trying to do is to remedy the situation. And of course, you remember, by the time they come, they tell them you have to pay for card, you have to make deposit otherwise. In all of this time, the woman is gone or the baby is gone. So we are taking the services to the people at the grassroots. These are some of the highlights. Of course, I'm not going to go into all of them, but I've just given you enough, to let you know where is a group of serious-minded people. I'm sure you know me. You have a fair idea of my kind of person. For me to be a part of this team, we mean business. We are not jokers, and we are not just coming here because, of course, what will be a bit, of a slowdown to us is probably the level of indebtedness. Because if you know what is coming to Osun State, from the Federation account at every month, you would marvel. Because, like I said, the state is not only owing the federal government, the state is owing local banks. with the exorbitant interest rates that mean when you borrow money from local financial institutions, you know. But we have smart people, and we are going to find a way to get around this, because we're not going to give excuses about rendering quality service, you know, to the people of Osun State.
Okay, well, I hope that so let me ask you, what is your final expectation of this process? What do you think will happen, and what do you think will be the final conclusion? And how do you think that is going to affect governance in Osun State?
The Supreme Court in the substantive matter has fixed June 24th for hearing. You know, of course, they're not going to hear the case all over again like it happened at the trial court, that's the tribunal. You know, just one day, you know, both parties will come and defend their arguments, you know, and after that, they reserve judgment, and maybe later on tell us when they will give their verdict. You know, like I said earlier, we are extremely hopeful that on the weight of justice, that we would get justice at the Supreme Court. You know, I'm not bothered about this other distraction, because these other cases that have been, you know, forum shopping all over the place, they're just distractions. I'm in the least bothered about that. Our eyes are on the ball. We're focused on the substantive matter at the Supreme Court, and we are extremely optimistic. And we believe that eventually, when justice is done, you know, and we win, you know, Osun State will be a model. You know, I love former Governor Peter Obi, who, to my mind, you know, is an exemplar in terms of transformational governance in Nigeria. You know, so Osun State is going to come under Senator Adeleke and replicate that kind of governance, because in that there was the Millennium Development Goals, you know, on education, on healthcare, on employment, and all of that. You know, and that was what former Governor Peter Obi did, you know, in Anambra State. He mainstreamed all those goals, all those targets. He mainstreamed them into his own plans, you know, for Anambra State. And that was why, before Governor Peter Obi came to government in Anambra State, Anambra used to be in the 33rd, 32nd position in WAEC and all of that. But after his 8 years, Anambra is second or third now. You can check. Don't believe me, just check it. The list of WAEC, you know, the states, ranking of states, because of exemplary governance, serious-minded governance. We're not coming to Osun State just to be going about with agbada and motorcades and all of that, you know, making us all about. No, you know, to render, you know, roll up our sleeves, you know, and render qualitative governance for the people of Osun State. We're optimistic, and that's what we see going forward.
Well, we wish you and your party good luck, and Senator Adeleke the best of luck. Hopefully, we'll see him dancing soon dancing soon into the governor mansion. Good luck with everything.